Welcome to Boat Harnesses. I fully am making this video with the complete understanding that the audience for this video will be about 15 people. However, I do want to get it recorded because when this question comes up, it's one of the hardest ones to answer just over the phone or anything like this. So this is only applies to twin rigs and triple rigs, so that narrows the audience even further, and it's probably only going to be the drivers of those specific boats that are even watch this thing. So for those of you, I'm with you. I understand it. It's a unique piece. This is a question I get maybe once a year, not multiple times a year kind of thing, but I'm hoping this video does a good visual of representing what you need to do. Because when the question does come up, typically the person asking is like, I have no idea where to go get the stuff, what material to use, how it should be designed, and so on. Fully understand that. Along the way, most of this is not going to be video sitting down here. I'm recording this in the dead of winter, and what I do have are a bunch of still photos, especially for the triple rigs, because those are the harder boat harnesses to make, is on the triple rigs. Essentially on a twin rig, it's a trunk line. It's just a heavier duty trunk line, but it's made the exact same way. It's just a bit shorter, and that's all you need. It's a straight trunk line. But the triple rigs are a bit more involved, and I have lots of good still photography, so I'll use that later on in the video to demonstrate what this should look like, how to make it, and so on. Let's start talking and breaking things down and go into material choices, the length, pole lines, that kind of stuff. Let's jump into material choices. If you have not watched the video on trunk lines, you should absolutely go and watch that first and then come back to this video, because really a lot of what is in the trunk lines video applies here as well. Material choices. First off, please don't use semi-toe strap or flat pack toe straps to do this. They're horrible. Go back to the trunk lines video and watch that, and I'll give you a whole rundown of why you should never ever use those. Along with that, I don't recommend anymore using thick versions of like Poly P or Poly E. You really have two choices, Amsteel Blue or Plasma Line. Which one should you use? That fully depends on what your club can afford. If you can afford it, this happens to be a really short one, I fully recommend going to Plasma Line. It's one of the few places, the boat harness is one of the few places where if I'm on a team, we'll still make the boat harnesses out of Plasma Line. Yes, it's about 3 to sometimes 4 times more expensive than Amsteel Blue, but it's got a super dense weave. That's the difference between Plasma and Amsteel. Even though this is thinner diameter, this is Amsteel. It is the same fiber, but Plasma Line is a lot more dense. So what does that mean at the boat harness level? Well, even less stretch, even though neither one of these really stretches a whole lot, so you don't need to worry about that part. The one redeeming factor for Plasma Line that I found right up near the boat is if you get it caught in the props of the outboards, it will tend to, it won't cut. It won't start ripping apart. Even with the props spinning at high speed, it tends to just stop your engine. So it will stop your prop, and hopefully you have a newer engine that has the has the gear that automatically shuts everything down, and it'll just shut down the engine on you. Yes, I have seen some Plasma Line boat harnesses get wrapped up in twin and triple rigs, and it literally just stops the engine. Engine's done, engine shuts down, everything's good, go untangle it, you look at it, typically it doesn't even have a nick in it. So, Plasma Line if you can afford it. If cost is more of an issue, go to Amsteel, but obviously thicker. This is just 1/4 inch that I have sitting here, but we'll go to a similar thickness as Plasma on your Amsteel, and you'll be good. That's fine. That'll work too. So both of them are super non-stretch, which is what you want right up by the boat, and all we're going to do is make some loops at the end, but we have to do it in specific ways. Let's talk boat harness diameter. How thick should that boat harness be? For those of you that have been using older style boat harnesses, you need to trust me on this one. for almost everybody, except for the biggest teams, this is just fine. This is 3/8 inch diameter plasma line, plenty of break-in strength. You're up well over 20,000 pounds. That should be just fine for all but the biggest teams. If you're a little worried, go up to 1/2 inch. Even for the biggest teams, we're talking teams pulling monster pyramids, really big stuff. 9/16 is as big as you should ever go. I don't have the chart in front of me, but the breaking strength is like 45,000 pounds or some crazy number like that. The world record stuff, we've been pulling there when we've used harness off of 9/16s, and it's just fine. At one time, we were making stuff out of 3/4 inch line, and it starts, even plasma starts getting heavy at that point, or AM steel starts getting heavy. But it was way overkill. Absolutely massive overkill at 3/4 of an inch. So again, 1/2 inch, 9/16 inch, you can't go wrong. 3/8 if you want to keep it cheaper. Remember, the price starts growing, dramatically as you start doing this. 3/8 is going to be just fine for almost every team out there. Again, plasma or AM steel, 3/8, 1/2 inch, you should be good. 9/16 inch diameter if you are pulling big beastly stuff. Length. Let's talk about how long or how much of these boat harness lengths that you need in terms of buying yourself the plasma or AM steel blue. So there is not one magic answer for this. I can't tell you exactly how much. Why not? Because every boat is a little bit different. And people will laugh and say, well, just give me the length for a legacy triple rig. Well, the problem is that teams are having different rope guards. So the guards surrounding the engines is a little different for a lot of different teams. Some teams request, one to be a little bit set back away from the engines versus another. Some, I'm finding out or hearing, are custom bending or rebending their rope guards to either be a little higher or a little lower in relation to the engines. And because of that, it changes how long the boat harness needs to be. Here's the general rule of thumb. Your final finished length from the tow eyes down between the engines, whether it's a twin or a triple, you want your boat harness to come out and around your rope guard, over the top, and it should reach just to the pylon. And you'll see why later when we look at how we make these. All right, so again, it should come from the tow eyes between the engines, outside and around and over the top of the rope guard, and back to the pylon in the back of the boat. That is your length, but it will vary between different makes of boats and even different teams and how you've had your rope guards made. And even where you set your rope guards too. Those can be adjusted on most boats. You can slide them forward or back several inches, and that will all play into your boat harness. Obviously, you don't want this boat harness, sitting 50 feet behind the boat or anything like that. They should be relatively short. I don't know, somewhere between 10 and about 17 feet or so, but that's how much variation I've seen between teams. As I jump into how to do it for a twin rig and a triple, and especially I've got good photography of the triple rigs, you'll be able to see that coming out and around and understand what I'm talking about pre-measure your boat. So get your boat, get into a garage or a shop or something like that, and then take a flexible tape measure and then measure that length so you know what your finished length is going to be. And then depending on if you're a twin or a triple, I'll discuss in a later section of the video how much extra material you need to add onto that to make this all come together. Twin rigs. Twin rig boat harnesses are definitely much, much easier than the triple rig ones. Essentially what you're looking at is a straight line, and it is a trunk line basically. So I'm going to link in the upper right hand corner, I will put a link that you can click on to the trunk lines video and how to make them. You follow the exact same directions as doing a regular trunk line. The only exception is your length and diameter of rope that you need. So what, same material, same everything. Again, 3/8 inch for most twin rigs can be just fine. If you're a little worried, go up to 1/2 inch. And then here's how you actually make that. Number one, get yourself a good quality clevis to hook onto the boat, onto the eye between the engines. Now, clevises, as you can see in the picture right here, they come in different shapes and sizes. Whichever one you get is up to you. They do make stainless ones. I will warn you, they are insanely expensive. So as you're looking at a couple of pictures here, typically you can go down to like a Tractor Supply store, Fleet Farm, Farm and Home, any of those things that typically carry farm-related equipment will have these for you. They will typically not be stainless, and they will corrode over time. So just be aware of that, you know, being hit in the water all the time, they are going to corrode. You'll still get some years of use out of them, but if you want to spend the money, and it's a crazy amount of money, you can get 100% stainless. Same braking strength, they're just very expensive. One thing I do recommend, and we'll try to get a close-up picture of it, is when you put these things onto your boat, screw them as tight as you can. Definitely get on there with a big channel locks or something and crank them tight. And then zip tie. Most of them have a hole through the pin. So the pin that screws in, get a nice thick zip tie, put it through that hole and zip tie it to the horseshoe portion of the clevis and crank that tight. And that helps as there's vibration back there over time, over an entire season. That helps you be able to keep that nice and tight, and it won't unscrew from the engine and boat vibrations. So that's just a little pro tip right there to keep that solid. But it still gives you the ability, you can always snip that zip tie and still unscrew that thing to get your loop out for your trunk line. All right, let's talk about how to make these. Again, go back to the trunk line video because I'm not going to show you all the detail here. It is the very same premise. You're going to make sure you have a 2-foot extra section here. You're going to use that 2 feet to put the loop in, come back through, and then weave 5 times back and forth and bury the rest. And that's what you're seeing here is the loop and then the weaving back and forth. This is super strong. It will never come out. This is exactly how we build them for all the world record stuff. We've never had one fail. How long? As you heard in the length section, I can't tell you how long. This right here, this is a 15-foot finalized. This was a twin rig harness. It's an old one now, so we've taken it off. But this was a twin rig harness, 15 feet long finished. So we needed 19 feet of material. Same rule, 2 extra feet on either end to make your splice, your loop, and weave it. So again, we started with 19 feet. This is plasma line, 3/8 inch, and we finished with a 15-foot line. This is virtually non-stretch, so you can make it right to length right away and hook it up to your boat and you'll be just fine. This came off of a Dynaski. So this was a Dynaski twin rig with a fairly tight rope guard around the engines. And so this 15-foot got us out and around and back to the pylon with no problem. Now let's take a look at what that looks like and how you hold that trunk line, or sorry, not trunk line, boat harness when you're not using it. So how do we hook that up inside the boat and keep it where we want it when it's not in use during other acts? Looks a little bit like this. In the following pictures, you are going to see a couple of different examples of what teams have done to hold their boat harnesses. In this first picture, a team with a longer boat harness has actually brought it all the way up to the grab handle near the spotter or rider. This is one way to do it. Nothing wrong with doing this. Personally, I do feel that this is a bit on the long side for a boat harness, and you shouldn't need to bring it all the way up there. But as you can see from this second picture, this is another method of doing, to hold the harness when it's not in use. My personal preferred method is to have the boat harness come up by the pylon. I know you're seeing pictures here of a triple rig, but the same premise applies for the twin rig. You bring the harness just long enough and have it come up right near the pylon, either on the top of the bridge by the pylon or just behind it going down into the engine well. And you can do that any way you want. What I typically do is grab a large stainless eye bolt. And you can see that here in these pictures. It's a big enough eye bolt with a eye that has a large enough opening for your standard steel heavy-duty carabiner that you're always going to have on the end of the harness for hooking up those big acts. So you look here, it's basically been drilled right through. It's not going to be weight or load bearing. You're not towing off of this. It's merely holding the harness. You clip that through there, and it's through bolted with large stainless fender washers on both the top and the bottom to help distribute that so you're not cracking the fiberglass. It's a great quick way for your rider to be able to click that in there, and then very quickly as you're doing that pyramid or conventionals hookup or something similar, to unclip that, hook it up, get the trunk lines from the people on the dock, and away you go. Be sure to watch the last section of this entire video on boat harnesses for the section on pull lines. So you're not quite done, even though you might have your twin rig harness made here, you've got everything done, you've got the eye bolt in place, you still need a pull line for your rider or spotter to be able to pull that harness back up out of the water when you're done with an act and not get everything tangled down in the props. That'll be at the very last piece of this video. Please jump ahead. Moving on to triple rig harnesses. These are definitely quite a bit more challenging to make than a twin rig harness. The best way I'm going to be able to demonstrate this to you is through a bunch of still photos I have of the Shawano Ski Shark's big triple rig from a season or two ago being made. Obviously no engines on it yet, but in such a good way that we can make the harness. As you see here, the clevises are in place. And also the rope guard is in place, and that's key. You do need to have the rope guard in the right location to make this. And a good example, if you watch the twin rig harness on and the parts on length of what I'm talking about, where you can see how we're going to measure from the clevises coming out and around the rope guard and back to the pylon. And that gives us an accurate length. I do tend to overestimate on the length of material needed. This is some good quality plasma line here. We knew this boat was going to be pulling heavy things, so this is 9/16 inch plasma line. And in terms of overall length, usually I use the 2-foot rule, but I overestimate it here, as you can see from the picture. And the knot up by the pylon, the center knot, I add an extra 2 feet. And then I think I actually added 3 feet down by the clevises just to be on the safe side, because this is all from one piece. We're not merging pieces together or splicing things together. This is one piece of plasma line. And so if memory serves, this needed to be a 14-foot. That's what we measured with a tape measure, a 14-foot harness, as we measured from basically the eyes on the back between the engines up over the rope guard and back to the pylon was 14 feet. So I added 2 feet to that for the coming up by the pylon there. The knot up there and the weaving does take up some rope, so I added 2 feet there. And then I added 3 feet down by this. So if we looked at this whole piece of what we needed for 14, I could double that coming back each side. So that's 28. So 28 feet because I'm doubling the length there because it's a V. 2 feet for the center knot. So that gets me to 30 feet. And then 3 extra feet on each end for splicing as well. That's an additional 6. So we had 36 total feet of plasma line here to make this correctly. To make the center loop that you're actually going to tow from, you can see a little bit of a close-up here in this picture. It is the same exact loop, knot, and weave process that you follow for a regular trunk line. So again, I will link that video up top, and you can go look at that detail and that close-up of how to make that. So you take your rope, find the middle. So if you have 36 feet of rope, go 18 feet in, make a nice big black mark with a permanent Sharpie marker there at the exact midpoint, and that's going to be the end of this loop. And you go then and make your knot, and when you weave it, back and forth 5 times, but at the end, you don't bury the rope, you leave it split into a V. And that's what you're seeing here in this picture is that V coming off of that. Down by each of the horse clevises, you're going to make a loop as well. This is the exact same process again, just like making a standard trunk line. It's the same loop,
It's the same knot and the same weave, and then you'll bury the excess. It is good at this point to have an extra person or an extra set of hands helping you, and ideally you want to center the V as much as you can. So have somebody tug on it and center it behind the boat, make marks right by the clevises with a Sharpie marker where each of your knots should go, and then go ahead and do that simple trunk line weave. You won't get this right on the first try. Nobody does. And the V will be a little off. And it's easy to, once you have both of these tied, stand behind the boat, tug on the center loop, and you will know which side isn't right. And you'll have to go back in and adjust your knot on one side or the other. You may need to do this 2 or 3 times until you get the V centered perfectly coming off of the boat. Don't rush this part of the process. Take your time. Don't get frustrated if you need to retie a couple of times by the horse clevises to get everything centered. You certainly want to spend the time and get it just right here. It will pay off later on. A word of caution. You will need to come back and adjust this harness one last time. Typically only once because it's plasma or am steel and it just doesn't have a lot of stretch to give. But the first time after you've yanked a couple of larger pyramids with this harness, check it. Obviously, you'll be into your season at this point, but you'll need to go back, get the boat out of the water, and probably retie one end by a horse clevis just once to get it centered perfectly again. And then after that, you should be just fine for the lifespan of this boat harness. One question has come up over the years looking at these V harnesses with a fixed knot on the end, and that has been, hey Eric, doesn't the boat pull unevenly when you're going around a turn with something like a pyramid? And that answer is yes, it does. It will pull unevenly. I have seen a number of different solutions to this, and to be quite honest, I have seen none of them that have worked. Some people have put pulleys in there. Instead of putting an end loop, they have a pulley with basically a big snap link on the end of it that runs along the surface of the harness. I have never seen one function for very long. They either jam or they break. I have seen other people try to forego the loop at the center at the end altogether, and they let a carabiner run up and down the harness. That seems to be a way to shorten the life of the harness and fray it up really good. So those whole things, for those of you who've driven boat for a while, and again, you're worried about that, the biggest stuff in the world has been pulled like this, and we haven't had an issue. 4 highs have been turned with a boat harness like this with no problem. So again, do whatever solution you want. I'm giving you my best recommendation is to make it just like this. Your boat harness is now nearly finished. This gives you a little bit of a step back picture looking at it, and you can see it's just about done here. This particular picture has a pull line in place. That is going to be the last section of this video, and you can certainly jump ahead to that. You will need a pull line both for triple rigs and twin rigs to help recover that harness back out of the water when you're done using it. So be sure to jump ahead to that section of video and take a look at it. As we zoom in here, you're now going to see some close-ups coming of the completed harness up by the boat. Again, there is a pull line on there. We'll discuss that in just a moment. But you can also see for this, the triple rig complete. It has the clevises in place. And we also can see a close-up of the screw eye or the eye bolt sitting in there with a nice big steel heavy-duty carabiner through it, which is what you use to tow everything. You should only need one unless you're running the largest of pyramids. Maybe you double that up with 2, but 1 is generally good, and it's in that screw eye. That screw eye is, or that eye bolt, I should say, is mounted directly through the fiberglass there, drilled right through, nice robust eye. It's not going to take any weight, so it doesn't need to be structurally robust. It's got large stainless steel fender washers on it to help distribute it, but again, it's just there to hold the harness out of the way when you're not actually using it. The last piece to complete your boat harness that you need to do is called a pull line. Some teams call these recovery lines, and this is a thin line used by the spotter in the boat to pull the harness back up out of the water, over the engines, and over the rope guard, and bring it back to the pylon area after you're done pulling a big act. Teams have different ways of doing this and different ways of connecting them. This is a great time to use some of that scrap ski rope and potentially some old braids your team might have lying around as well, and you'll see where that comes into play. In this first picture that you're seeing, this is one method of connecting the pull line. And the pull line simply is regular ski rope with a loop on either end. And so in this case, they're just looping it around and pulling back through at the end of the boat harness, the part where you connect all the ski ropes to. And that's what they're doing here in these couple of pictures that you're seeing. Again, here's a look at a different team's harness, but you see it there too. You see the blue connected on to the purple harness, and they've just looped it through with no problem. That happens to be the way they wanted to do this. Nothing wrong with that. It works well. This is another example, and you've seen this picture already, but they're using the small black light-duty carabiner here. It's a small light-duty thin one to hook on their pull line onto the main harness. That way they can snap it on and off really quick if they need to in an emergency or whatever they need, but it's a quick way of doing it, and that works just fine as well. Let's take a look here at a couple of overviews of the pull line so you can see its purpose. Please disregard the semi-toe straps there. This was in the making of a new harness, and those toe straps are coming off of the boat at this time. You see the harness is purple, and then the pull line is blue, and it comes out to the end and goes up and over the top there. It's a good example of a pull line coming, from a boat and back up into it. Now, the pull lines, when not in use, teams have different ways of keeping them straight. Sometimes they'll let them rest down in the engine well in the back. Sometimes they're just on the floor in the back of the boat. Other teams will wrap them around the pylon when not in use. That is totally up to you how you do that, as they can sometimes get in the way. This shows the other end of the pull line up by the boat there, and it's just a loop. It does have some rubber tubing on it to help protect the spotter's hands, but there's one key piece missing here. This isn't quite done in this picture, and I unfortunately do not have a finalized picture of this because the braids are missing. You don't have to have braids. Some teams do their pull lines exactly like you see here, just a thin piece of ski rope, and they might tie a couple of knots in the ski rope. Basically, the part from the end up until about the rope harness has some knots, basically to give some grip to your spotter to pull that. Because remember, you might have 20 plus ropes hanging off of this thing, and there's some weight to it, and they need some friction and a grip in there to pull that. And ski rope is sometimes slippery. So everything is in place in this picture with the exception of the braids, and I'll just show you the one example photo that I do have. My apologies that I do not have a better picture of this, but if you look at the pylon in this picture, you see two different colored braids there. And what these were old pyramid braids. They were getting a bit frayed. These can be some old ones that are laying around that really aren't being used. They don't have to be in perfect condition. Obviously, you don't want ones that are going to break easily. But even if they're a bit frayed, it's still a good second use for your braids on the pull line. And the pull line is blue, and you can see that it has been woven through the braids. And you do this to give your spotters some really nice grip. So in this case, they were 2 3-foot leftover braids woven through the pull line. And that way they had about 6 good feet of braid to help get everything up and over the engines. And if you really want to do a good job, I would recommend this. Again, you don't have to do this. This part is completely optional. But if you do, your spotters will thank you for it. And with that, that is the end of making boat harnesses. Good luck.